My name is Martin Webb. Welcome back to Nevada County Media's Tipping Point, the show about personal climate action. The name Tipping Point is two meanings for us. Both the tipping points that nature is reaching outside as it tries to balance out how humans have been living on the planet, as well as when we reach our personal tipping points. Folks want there to be things differently in the world, and you have to think differently, act differently, and communicate differently if you really want to make a difference. So we're here to shine a light on who I consider to be local eco-celebrities, to talk about what they've done differently after reaching their personal tipping point. So I'm really pleased to be joined today by Carolyn Jones-Rogers, longtime Nevada County resident. Even was it your grandfather or great-grandfather?
Great-grandfather came from Cornwall in 1881.
And you're a retired teacher, and I have always been impressed with your care and concern for the environment, and we share some similar friends and circles, and I just want to say that I was always really fascinated by at social events or at parties your willingness towards the end to actually clean up, make sure the recycling went in the right place. I've noticed that you're someone that thinks differently, acts differently, communicates differently. So knowing that that's what the show is about, can you tell us a little bit about when you reached your personal tipping point about making more of a difference? How did you notice you began thinking differently?
Well, I kind of want to go back in time because I think part of why I'm so aware of waste is probably the thing I'm most aware of, is because my mom was raised in the Depression. And so they couldn't waste. So they were told, eat everything on your plate and waste not, want not. Mm-hmm. And so I was raised with that. And so I'm very happy to make as least waste as possible. I was just volunteering at the thrift store today. Mm-hmm. Look at the camera. Mm-hmm. Cancer Aid Thrift Store in Grass Valley. And talk about no waste. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
The clothes that come in, the stuff that's good gets put out. The stuff that is torn gets recycled. If it's no good, it's cotton. It gets sold as rags. It's such a happy place for me because that's how I was raised, that you don't waste anything.
Well, it's interesting because our natural operating system on the planet is nature. I think of it as an operating system.
Like that.
And in our operating system, what we've seen is there's actually no such thing as waste. Nature, there's no such thing as waste in our system. It's sort of a human invention that's actually a big part of the problem. So it's fascinating for you to think about that being so important, because for most of us, we're raised thinking that waste is just a natural thing. Every day, we create waste, when actually, in order to help with the challenges that we have with our environment and ecology, we need to begin thinking of there being no waste. So that's a fascinating way for you to think about how you live your life, and that's a great example of thrift stores. That's a big part of personal climate action, is not always buying things, but if you do, not always buying new and buying used. So kudos to you for thinking about waste and its impacts. Now, are there other ways that you find yourself thinking differently when it comes to how you live your life?
Actually, I'm glad you said think, because that was one thing I wanted to say is, as a teacher, I found out teaching third grade, they don't know. I mean, it's not like they don't think, 'cause third graders are awesome, mm-hmm. but they don't know where food comes from, mm-hmm. and they don't know where their waste goes. And so I feel like if children can be more aware, like they are eating a chicken taco and they throw it away, well, that chicken just got killed, so you could throw it away. Like maybe if you can think more about where things came from, you would be a little less wasteful. And if you knew that it was just where it was going to go, maybe you'd be less wasteful too.
That's fascinating, because what you're talking about is really important for everyone, not just thinking about what happens after we consume or use things, but I hear you talking about being aware of the whole life cycle, what happens beforehand in order to get things to us. And I'm glad that you bring up food waste, because that is a huge issue in America and in the world, and it's harming the environment. I was just reading an article recently that quantified it as 40% of the food produced in the United States has gone to waste. And that's a huge amount of energy and pollution, everything from when they plant it to harvesting it to processing it to bringing it to our faces and then dumping it in the trash. Big part of the issue.
And even one time I was at airplane flight, and there's a program about food waste, and it wasn't just talking about the food that we eat and throw away, but about how we have to eat such perfect food. And we have a wonderful farmer that lives nearby, Super Tubers, and they don't throw it away, they compost it. But boy, I go through there and I could rummage through and pick all sorts of good stuff to eat. But it's because people, we want to buy the perfect looking carrot. It can't have a twist in it or whatever.
Same. I live on a road with a couple of farmers, and they will oftentimes share with me as a neighbor the things that they can't sell because they just don't look good, but they're perfectly nutritious and tasty. So after touching on then how you think differently, let's move to one of the biggest things that people like to talk about, and what are ways that you're acting differently in order to make more of a difference, after becoming more aware of things, how they get to you, and then what you do afterwards. Talk a little bit about some of the actions that you take that might be different.
Like what I do around my house, or like how I communicate with people?
Well, communication, let's do that last.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's really the big one that I want to encourage people. Oh, you got your notes.
I've got my notes.
List the different actions and things that you take, because this is intended to be a peer influence type of show. And while a lot of people care and want to make more of a difference, a lot of folks aren't sure what makes more of a difference. Some people feel weird about what they do, and this is an important way to share with everybody that we all are concerned and we all are taking small steps, and those small steps add up quite a lot. So, yeah, tell our viewers what are some of the actions that you take in order to make more of a difference.
Well, it's kind of fun to think about. I think if you could think about challenges in your home of ways that you can waste less or use less chemicals or any way that's better for the environment. Mm-hmm. I think I felt like I grew up from commercials, they tell you, you have to use Windex to clean your windows. Well, you don't. Right. My bathroom window, I just use water, And so I think if you could start thinking, not what you've been brainwashed into using products and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So the bathroom, I wrote Drano. Ooh, I don't want to put Drano down when I have a clogged sink. Mm-hmm. So I put in baking soda and then vinegar and then boiling water and then plunge it. And so I don't know if you could we're going back to thinking. Before you do something that's bad like Drano, what could you do instead of it that's not so harmful to the environment?
Absolutely, yeah. That's a big part of what I see you doing, and what I see a lot of people doing is now realizing that not only is it nicer for the environment to perhaps use more natural home cleaning products, but in many cases it's actually cheaper.
Yeah.
And you aren't having to buy plastic over and over, and so it's something that helps us, helps the environment, and can make the indoor air quality better for people as well. So.
And then I think about the companies. Like if I don't buy Drano and no one else buys Drano, then the company that makes Drano won't be doing all the pollution out there too.
Mm-hmm. They go where the dollars go. Walmart is the largest seller of organic fruits and vegetables in the United States. Not a lot of people know that, and they didn't do it because they're tree huggers. They did it because they were counting dollars and saw where the people went. So this is very much a grassroots change that's happening from the bottom up. And the media likes to talk about the big rich people, but we're here to talk about, what are we doing that actually is trickling up. So yeah, the homemade cleaning products, that's huge. Thanks for mentioning that.
And I want to say something Martin taught me when I first met you
about
voting with our dollar.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, like you just said, if we don't buy, I keep picking on Drano, but it's the first thing that came into my mind. But
Chemicals.
There's a lot of products.
Mm-hmm.
If no one spends their dollar buying Drano, well, the companies they can't do it anymore. So that's a really cool. I love that saying. You vote with your dollar.
Mm-hmm. They don't sell stuff people don't buy.
Yeah.
And it's trickery because there's scientific manipulation of getting us to buy stuff. And then they say, well, people just want this. But once you start thinking differently and acting differently, you can send signals. Actually, we don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think people really want to do the right thing. And so sometimes they just have to see someone else's example of how to do it. I think people are good.
What other actions do you take? Because I know that you've got a list.
I've got
let's
my
hear
list.
here.
Okay, so in the kitchen, bubbly water, sparkling water's popular now. So we use a soda stream. So we reuse the containers, and then it's just water. And then the flavoring comes in glass, and glass is the best recyclable material because glass can be recycled almost infinity amount of times. And then we compost at our home.
Okay.
And so that's in the kitchen.
And let me clarify, because I think you're similar to me in that I compost. I actually don't necessarily use it for anything. I just have a compost pile so that nature has a chance to go back into nature and be eaten and absorbed.
Yeah, and the deer eat most of it.
There you go. Yeah, the buffet, the backyard buffet.
And they like it. Yeah, so that hit a lot of it.
Taking a tour of your home, so to speak. Yeah.
But boy, I just want to hit the thrift store, and it's just so you just don't even know what thrift stores have that, like, you don't. I don't know, if you have time, go there instead of Amazon first if you can. There's so much that they have there that you can use.
Well, what helped me with my thinking about thrift stores is, a big part of concern for the environment and taking action is shopping as local as possible.
Yeah.
We might as individuals drive as little as possible, have hybrids, EVs, or what have you, but how much are we making other people drive on our behalf?
Yeah.
And every time we're consuming stuff from farther and farther away, that's more and more emissions to bring things to us. But then there's the notion that, especially in a rural community like ours, there isn't a lot that's being made local. There's not cars produced here. There's not TVs produced here. You can't buy that stuff local. And that's where I like to say, well, except if you're comfortable buying things that aren't brand new, we actually do produce all of those things. We produce used vehicles, we produce used televisions. Almost anything that anyone wants is produced locally if you're ready to buy something secondhand that works perfectly well and usually is a bit cheaper. So I'm so grateful that you bring up the thrift stores, because that's one of the best ways to repurpose, reuse, buy local, and avoid buying new. All of these things that added together make quite a difference.
Let's see what else we have. Here's one. How about wear your clothes a couple times before you wash them? Because you think, so when you wash clothes, you're using the soap, you're using water, you're using electricity, but, wear your clothes twice, then you're cutting all of that in half.
Exactly. I found myself doing that a lot during the pandemic, during the shutdown. I was like, well, I'm not going anywhere. I didn't do anything today. No one's going to tell that these were the same pants I wore yesterday. So, yeah, small stuff like that matters. Cutting things down in half, shorter showers, and not washing your clothes quite as often and frequently. So.
Oh, here's a big one.
Okay.
How about I go eat frozen yogurt, and I like it. I go often enough. So I have a bowl. I have a bowl in my trunk, and so every time I go there, they weigh the bowl, and then they subtract that off the total. So, the thing I think about is the people that go to Starbucks or coffee, and every time they get a new container, just take your mug, throw it, after you drink, wash it, throw it in your trunk, take it in the next time. And so, if everybody did that, wouldn't that be wonderful? A great way to reduce waste.
Well, by you bringing it up and talking about it, hopefully more people will do that.
Yeah.
Well, let's go then to the closer, because for me this is one of the biggest issues right now, because it's not necessarily a climate crisis. The climate's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing, trying to balance us out. It's really a human crisis. And we have all of the solutions according to science, and we've got the money, we have the ability to do these things. It's now become a crisis of communication. And a lot of people feel like others don't care about the environment. Fascinating polls keep coming out that show majorities of Americans are concerned about the environment and the climate. But if you ask them what they think, what other people feel, they think that most people don't care. So I want to encourage all of my guests to think about how they can communicate differently, whether it's in person, on social media, with friends and family. So knowing that that was going to be our closer for the show, what ways do you think that you can or are planning on communicating about this issue differently?
Well, you'll be tickled to hear.
Okay, I'm ready to be tickled.
Because I knew that was going to be a question you asked. And so, I'm laying in bed thinking about it. And because I taught forever, and I love it, and I miss it because I'm retired. And I thought, well, shoot. There's this awesome woman, her 2 daughters were in my 3rd grade, and every year for about 10 years, even when her daughters weren't in my room, she came to my classroom. She worked for waste management. Now she works for a wastewater company, and so she came and did, and there's a wonderful program with my class, and she'd show a video about the MRF in Placer County. MRF is a materials recovery facility.
Okay.
And she'd show them a video about that, but then she'd talk about waste and how we can reduce waste. And so I've gotten the ball rolling to see if I can create a program and work through the schools and do what she did.
Nice.
So I spoke with her last week, and she's connecting me with Waste Management. And Waste Management supposedly has some grants if I talk about food waste. And so I'm hoping to do that.
Excellent.
I know.
Well, the adults communicating to youth what we're seeing and how we're feeling and demonstrating our concern as well as offering solutions is huge. Yeah. Because the feedback right now globally, worldwide, is that the youth and young people really don't feel like adults are paying attention because they don't hear us talking about it.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about it because we don't think anyone's supposed to talk about it. So bridging that conversation gap and bringing it up to younger generations is really important to demonstrate to them that we are aware, we're working on this together. And
then they'll talk with their parents.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for making time.
Yeah.
We could go on for hours and hours because this is a subject that doesn't have an end, but I want to thank you so much for making time to come in, for being an inspiring community member. You're an eco-celebrity as far as I'm concerned. So thanks for tuning in. My name is Martin Webb. This has been Tipping Point on Nevada County Media. We hope that you'll check out some of our past episodes and tune in next month as we talk with another local peer who can share and communicate about what they're doing to take more personal action.